Hello everyone, good evening. So I think we should start today's session. Okay, so as I mentioned that in the first 15-20 minutes, we will discuss about the doubts that you have regarding it can be from the React.js, it can be from Node.js or MongoDB or anything else, REST API. So if you have any doubt, I asked you to note it down and you just paste your query here on the chat and I will try to answer them. You can tell me better, right? So we started from, I think, HTML, basic web technologies. We have learned that. We have learned HTML, we have learned CSS, we have learned JavaScript, the basics. Okay. And after that, after completing those things, we did some assignments. We did assignment on the portfolio. We did assignment on the weather application. Some of you even made it more dynamic using the API integration, right? So after that, after doing that weather application, you started with the Node.js. Then you connected Node.js with MongoDB. Then I have taught you how to create the data models, right? So you have created data models for your final application, so the final project that you are going to build. And after that, after working on the API end, then we started with React, right? So React is a very crucial part because whatever UI we will build, we will do it using React, and we will create these APIs using Node.js and MongoDB, and then after creating those APIs, we will consume those APIs in our React application. All right, so we are in the middle of the React. So this week, we are planning to complete these React hooks. So previous week, I say to learn the React state, props, the lifecycle methods, and all. And this week, the target is to complete this event handling, user input handling, that part. And then later on, we will target to complete the React hooks. So the React hooks, in the sense, say use state, use effect, why these hooks are important. So anyway, I will discuss about that later. And after that, what is planned? So after that, in the next phase, so after in this week also, I will ask you to learn about the how to make the network call. So how to make a API call, how to make API call to your services that you have written in using Node.js, right? So in this week only, we will learn how to make the network calls. Then after that, in the next week, I will ask you to start with Redux. So why Redux is important? Redux is a state management library. So what happens? So whenever your application grows, there will be multiple components. Means in a single page, you can have 10, 15 components. Okay, so how we will communicate, how those components will communicate with each other. In that case, Redux, a state management library, is necessary. In that case, I will ask you to learn Redux. So using Redux, you will be share data in between components. Say if you have a search field, then you are searching for some result, then you will be able to print the result asynchronously using Redux. So you will be able to share the data along with other components as well using Redux. So the next week's target will be using Redux. And after that, on the 8th week of our program, there we will work on our final project, where we will implement certain features. We will create those UIs using React. We will create those forms. Say whoever is working in Airbnb clone, they will work with the forms, that are forms to create reservations. Those you are working with, all of the applications have the sign up form. So there we will learn how to use authentication, how you can authenticate users in your application. So that part we will learn, right? So after that, after learning that, so I will give you the dates when you have to submit that projects. So after submission, so after the first phase, you will submit the projects to your coaches. So they will review your project. So after reviewing those projects, so they will give you some feedback, and by taking those feedbacks, you do those changes. And after that, we will give another date. In that date, you come and present. So there will be few other industry experts, so they will review your project. So you have to present your project to them. And and you have to explain the features that you have implemented, why your application should be considered as the better one, right? Among with your peers, they are also developing the same application. So in that case, that part is important, to make your application as proper to the current application that we have. That means the existing application we have. So say if you are working in uh, in a Cowin clone, in that case, we will see whether your application is close to that Cowin's UI and the user experience that you have. Similarly, if you're working in LinkedIn clone, so we will check whether your UI application's UI is somewhat close to the LinkedIn's UI or not. Okay, these are the few checks that we have to do, and you have to also think about the UI. So whatever colors you are using, whatever shadows, border colors, and the background color, text color you are using, you should be very more precise about that. That whatever is there on the original site, whether you can keep that kind of a UI or not. So that is the thing that you have to check, right? So is it clear to you now? Okay. Okay, so after that part is ready, so we will pick top 10 of from you. So top 10 projects from your end. So it can be anyone, any project. So they will work after that. So we want to complete that phase before the November. Okay, so we want to complete that by the end of October only. So after completion of this part in November, what we will do, we will pick top 10 from these from top 10 students or top 10 projects from the submissions, and we will interview them one by one, and then we will assign him some live projects. So he will directly work with Geogo in some live projects. Okay, and then if everything goes well, then we have some announcement to make, but that comes in future. I would not like to make any commitment or anything like that right now. So give your best, and you thoroughly follow the timeline and the schedule that I will provide, and the templates that I will give for weeks. So you go through those templates and you learn those things and you implement those ideas in your application. I hope the whatever in the end of this 2 months program, the whatever output will come will be great for you to portray, right? And what else we got regarding in this internship program? I think some of you are sharing your code. So I have asked you to start this 50 days of programming, that challenge. So some of you are even posting every day, and some of you is posting after 2 3 days. Anyway, that give you that give you good reach for your social media profile. So there we have another session that we will take, and at probably in the 8th week of this program. So there we will tell you how you can better optimize your LinkedIn and all, or other things, how you can connect with proper people. So like if you are a student and if you want to connect, so you are looking for jobs, right? In that case, how you can find the proper person and how you can reach them, or they can reach you. So how you will increase your profile's visibility. Those are the things that we will discuss in the 8th session. So where we have a career guidance program that will come after that. All right. So is it okay, the what we did and what we are going to do in the last 15 20 days? Okay, great. So then let's start with this session. So today's session, the primary discussion was on the targets that we have to accomplish. First, I asked you to create one document. So it can be a simple Word document, so that you can share with us, right? So you can share it with your coaches. So what are the endpoints? First, you write down the endpoints. Endpoints mean if you are working in an e-commerce application clone, in that case, say there is a products endpoint, there is a user endpoint where users can come and register. Then there are some endpoints for the checkout process, right? So what are the endpoints? What are if it is a get endpoint or it is a post endpoint that you also mentioned, means what is the HTTP method there you are using there. After that, whether there is any query parameter or not. Okay, that part you mentioned. The fourth part is that if you are creating, if the endpoint is to create some sort of record, if you are creating an account, if you are creating an user, if you are creating one product, in that case, that what should be the sample request body. Okay, so along with that information, so you prepare one API document, you share with us. Okay, so then we will be able to review it, and we'll be able to guide you to follow the REST design principles. What are the REST design principles you should follow, and if there is any correction is required or not. Okay, so REST stands for representational state transfer, right? So using REST, so what does that mean? So representational state transfer, what are their what are their design principles that you should follow? So those things we have to learn, means the endpoints that we are creating, whether they are following the RESTful design principles or not. Okay, so that we have to see. So in that case, maybe I will discuss about it someday. Okay, what are the design principles that you should follow for REST? I think if you have started creating your APIs, maybe one day I will share that I will take one session, I will discuss about that. All right, so you just prepare that API document and share it with your coaches, or you can also forward it to me, so I will review it. Okay, after that, you whatever learning you had currently on React, okay, you start creating your UI for final project. Okay, because I think if you have learned about the component, state, props, okay, and in this week you will also learn how to make API call and how to use the React hooks. I think that basic part is sufficient to start with the UI. So in this weekend, so you start with your UIs. Okay, then in this week there will be another assessment test which we will give. So this assessment test will be based on the React.js and Node.js only. Okay, so there will be 20-25 questions. So we will give it on maybe Sunday or next Monday, so we complete it by that time. Okay, so these are the all of these means your targets for this week. So prepare the API document, start creating UI using React.js, and we will give an assessment test. You just go there, and there will be some MCQ questions, 10, 20, 25 MCQ questions. You complete that. That's all for today's task for you. Okay, and after that, I will talk with React hooks. So anyone used React hooks previously? Have you used React hooks previously, or you know anything about React hooks? Yes, no, anything you can write. Use state, yes, use state is a hook. So you have concept of the state, right? What is state? What is props? Yes. Okay. So what is state? What is state? And what is props? Props is can you tell me what is the difference between a state and props? This is a common question that comes. And normally, if you go for an interview, they will also ask you the same question. What is state? Means this is a basic question. What is state? What is props? What is the difference between state and props? Anybody can answer? I think some of you have already used it. Okay, so state is an object that contains information about the content. Yes, I think that both of the definitions are correct. So Sharian's whatever you were saying, and Somik, you are also correct. So state is an object that contains the information, current state of the current information. What is the current status of an component? It holds that kind of data. And props is something which is passed from its parent component. Whether it can be anything. You can pass any kind of data. You can pass string, you can pass object, you can pass even pass functions as a property to your child components, right? So why hooks is used? So why hooks came into the picture? So hook was is not very old. Okay, so I think they introduced React hooks in version 16 of React. We are in version 17. So what happened before React hooks? There was the class-based component and the functional component. So most of the components that you are building right now, they are functional components. You are just writing the function, you are returning these output, that's all, right? So there is nothing called you are defining constructor, you are defining the component did mount or component will mount or the render you are implementing the render function. Okay, so those things are not there. So right now you are only defining one functional component, and there inside that you are writing all of your logic, whether you are fetching data from somewhere, that one also you are writing here, whether you are managing your state, in that case also you are doing inside this functional component. But in case of class based component, you had to manage the state in the constructor. Okay, then you have to make the network call from the component did mount lifecycle method or the component will mount lifecycle method. But those things are not here right now, so those things are not present here currently, right? So what is that, what is the what is happening? So after that, after version 16, they have introduced react hooks. So using react hooks, those things are possible inside the functional component as well, right? So a quick these are the few hooks that I will mention. I will explain later. So what they made is that, so using these hooks, we can manage a component state inside a functional component also. So for that, there is no need to define a class based component. If we want to make any external network call, for that also we don't need any class based component. We can do it inside these using these hooks. Okay, so the very frequently used, I would say, hooks are the there are two hooks which are more frequently used. The first one, as you can see in the screen, it is a use state. So using this use state hooks, you can manage the state of a component inside a functional component. Okay, as the definition says, function is use state is a function that lets you use the state in a functional component. Okay, this is one example. One This is one hook. Another hook is which will use more day in day out in our development task, that is use effect. So use effect is something, okay, using that we can make our functional component behave like a class based component. We will get some sort of lifecycle methods inside our, or the lifecycle method like behavior inside our functional component. So for that, the use effect hook is important. Then third, there is a use ref hook that lets us to create a ref. Okay, that is something we can skip that part for now, but we can keep focus on these two hooks, which we will primarily use in most of our cases, that is use state hook and the use effect hook. Okay, so what the fourth thing is that the hooks are the are the reusable hooks are the reusable code that we can write instead of using more classic techniques like inheritance on all or the class based components. Hooks is something which we can write once and use it in other places as well. Okay, so I will start with these used state hooks first. Okay, so what are the basic hooks that we will use normally? So first, the basic hooks are use state, use effect, use context. So context is something which is a very new concept that came along with these hooks. That is, context is something, say, how we will pass data from one component to another component, how we will pass data from one parent component to child component. Can you tell me how we will pass the data from one parent component to another child component? Using props, right? Using props, we can pass the data. So now say you have five components, and the parent component to the child component, it is deeply nested, means up to level 5. Now if you have to pass some data from the very root parent component to the very leaf node child component, then what we have to do, you have to pass the data in every one of those components, like props is this, this is the property, this is the property. You have to pass the data one by one. So context is something which is saying that you keep the data in some sort of a, you can say some sort of a storage, and your child component, even if it is a 5th level or a 10th level, they can access that data. That is something the context came into the picture to, means help us to help us to give us relief from this passing data in every component. In that is why the context came into the picture. So I will talk more about context in the context specific section. So I will take one class on context as well. Okay, so but these are the few basic hooks that you can use day in day out. That is use state and use effect. And these are the other additional hooks like use reducer, use callback, use memo, use ref, use layout effect, use debug value, use imperative handle. And these are the few advanced hooks that you can read from their official documentation that they have on their website, and you can use it from there as per your need. Okay, but for that you have to study it properly. Okay, so first we will start with the use state hook. So in the use state hook, I think if you have implemented it previously, so you'll be able to understand it more properly. So this is the few pieces. So if I would decode the code, these are the few pieces of those of the use state hook. So first part is that I am defining one constant. So inside constant, now this one, the first inside constant, I am defining one, you can say it is an array. Okay, this array contains two elements. The first one is the piece of state that I want to keep, say it is an active index. Okay, and the second part is something which is a function to change that piece of state. Say you have a text field. Okay, so I will take one example here. So I will share you my screen. Let me go to the share panel. Yes, let me share my screen from here. Desktop one. Okay, so is it visible, guys? Fine. So I will open one app, product app. This is one random app, just application. Okay, so here what I will do, I will start the server. It is in running in 3002. Okay, fine. Okay, so what is happening, this is one simple application. So here I will just, let me check where is the UI. Okay, so this one has a lot of details here. Let me create one new component. Say text field, text field.js. So using this text field.js, what we will do, import, okay, import not required. Const text field component is something which we will define it here. Okay, so inside that we will take one input component. Input name is, say, uh, input field's name is, say, username. Okay, and its type, input type is text. Okay, fine. So we will import this file here. List of products, we will comment it out for now, not comment. I will import this file here. Import text field from components text field. Okay, so I will render this component here. You can, it's not showing here. What is the problem? I would remove this thing. Oh, sorry, typo. Yes. Okay, so the field is coming here, right? So now let's say I'm defining a on change behavior. So what I want to do is that I want to display whatever user types it here, I want to display it here. Okay, so in that case I will make use of this use state hook. So I will say handle input. Okay, and I will define this handle input function here. So let's see, let's go to the browser and check. Okay. So as you can see, whatever we are typing it here, we can see these values inside my console. Okay. So if I would type my name, it is printing it here properly. But I want to, whatever text is I'm typing it here, I want to print this text here. So how I will do that? So in that case, I will make use of this use a state hook that comes from this React library itself. So import React, or say use state from React, right? So how we will use that? So we will follow the same template that is given here in our slide, here. So what is the template? First we will define one constant, then we will name our piece of state, and then here we will give one function to change that piece of state, right? So we will define it similarly here. I will define a constant. Okay, so constant's name is say value. Okay, and the second is that to change the second is something, second argument is that a function that will change that piece of state. Say set value equals, we will use this use state hook. Inside this use state, there we will pass the what is the initial value for this piece of state. If I would pass null here, that means the initial value is null. Okay, so I would print this value here. Say, okay, for that we have to keep one fragment value. So I will wrap it around in h4 tag. 4. Let's see whether it renders properly or not. So currently there are no values here, but if I would initialize this thing with my name, that prints it here properly, right? So it is taking the value from the state. So I have defined one state called value. So here, here I have initialized I've initialized the state using this default string called my name Abhishek. And if I would like to print it here, I can print it here easily, right? So now let's see how we will change this the value of this state. So for that, as I said, this is the function that will change this value of this that will change the state value. Okay, so if we say text field value, I will change it to like this one. Set text field value. Okay, and I will just pass the whatever input whatever values I'm getting from the state, I will pass it here. Okay, that is something is happening here. So I'm just whatever value I'm getting from the input field, I'm setting my state's value. I'm changing my state's value with that one. Okay, so let's see. So as the state initialized with the string called Abhishek, now if I would type something like that, say React, is working properly, right? As you can see, React is something that is getting printed here, right? So understood, this is a very simple hook that you can use day in day out to manage the state. So if you have a form, if you want to manage its state locally using React, this is a very basic way to start with the hooks. Is it clear, everyone, how to use hooks? Clear, everyone, how to use hooks? Okay, great. So as I mentioned, the first piece is the piece of state. Second is a function to change that piece of state. And here we are using the use state hook, and this is the initial value for the piece of state. Okay, but you can keep the initial value null. You can also keep some default value here. So that is up to you that depends on the implementation that you are going to have. Okay, so instead of string, you can, if your state handles any array, you can also keep an array here. Okay, that is not an issue. Okay, So this is a simple example of use state. You will find multiple use cases as well for using this hook. Okay, once this part is complete, next. Okay, so now if some of you have created any or have you ever seen any class-based component, then in class-based component we used to define it like state equals, say, active index equals 0. Okay, this is the initialization state. And in case of functional components, the initialization is very easy. You have to define it like use state then 0. Okay, 0 is the initial value. Now, to get to print the value in anywhere, say like we have printed in our component where we have displayed the result of this state piece of state. So in that case, you have to write like use this dot state dot active index to access this piece of state. Here you can, in functional component, you can only write this active index, this variable. This holds everything. And then if you have to change this value, then you have to do it something like this dot set state dot set state. Then inside that, you have to pass whatever value you want to pass. Set state is something which is already defined, is a predefined method that is available in React for the class based component. But in case of functional component, what these things becomes like this: set active index. This function name can be anything. You can define it as per your ease. Okay, and you can pass the default value here, right? This is the basic difference in a class based component and a functional component where you will use this use state hook. All right, clear everyone? Okay, so Saryans is saying what is this operator? Okay, what is this thing? I'm writing it here like so. This is nothing but a fragment. So fragment is something which is available in React. Okay, so I can also import it from here, fragment. So I can give it here. So normally what happens, we give these inputs, sorry, give the HTML tag, HTML elements, right? The HTML tags, right? It's like a div, like a span, or we normally use divs, span, image, table, and all. Okay. But what happens whenever you would write that thing, say if I would write div in our HTML, that will get generated here. In that case, that thing also will have the same okay, so same div component we will have it here, right? But in case if I would use the fragment, that will not have any kind of a div or something like that. Yes, as you can see here, in after header you see two of these input fields only. So the fragments does not go into the output HTML. Okay, so it's so if you need your HTML to be clean, and if you don't want any unwanted divs, so what happens in some cases, say you are writing a very, what I would say, a nested UI. Okay, you are creating, say, parent, child, and all, and you have specifically defined some CSS in your code. So if I would define one instead of say div, if I would define main here, and and you have something that is already defined in your CSS file, say inside, say I'm just writing the CSS here. So say you have a CSS class that defines say in HTML, inside HTML, if you have an input inside HTML directly, if you have an input, then you would write, if you give the border color something. Okay, in that case it will in some cases, if the this kind of deep nesting is implemented, in that case that will not work if some intermediate main or something comes. So in those cases you can use fragment. So this is the fragment you can use. In that case, what will happen, this kind of CSS will work. There is no need to give any sort of a div or anything like that. Okay, and in this case what happened, I just only wanted to print output these two values. Okay, input and h4. I did not wanted anything else to be printed from this return. Okay, so in that case, see, if you only keep these two things, you will give an error, because in JSX, yes, JSS as you can see, the error is coming here. JSS expressions must have only one parent element. This is a very key thing I think you have also faced, right? So if you are writing any multiple components and there is no parent element, in that case you will get similar error. If I would save this file here, okay, I will comment out these things. If I would save this file, I will get an error here, right? Error is saying that adjacent JSX elements must be wrapped in enclosing tag. Okay, so in that case, they are suggesting that do you want to use a JSX fragment? So I will use the fragment. So I will just comment it out, the fragments. The error will go. There would be no error. And instead of writing this whole fragment, this is the short code for fragment. So you don't need to, import it. You don't need to write fragment here. This is a shorthand version of the React fragment. So is it clear now, Shayans? Yes. Okay. Great. So our use state hook is, I think I have defined, I have given one simple example here. Okay. So, and I have also said what is the difference between these two things. Okay. So now let's see what is the second hook. The second hook is that the use effect. What is use effect? Use effect is something which gives us the behavior of life cycle methods. If you have gone through that course that I have given, there is a specific section for the life cycle methods, like component did mount, component will mount, okay, should components will receive props, okay, and the constructor is there and the render function is there. Those things are there, okay. But instead of using that thing, we can use those behaviors in our functional components, as I said, using the use effect hook. Okay, so what use effect hook does, it allows functional component to use something like lifecycle method. So it is not directly the lifecycle method, but you can get similar behavior here. Second thing is that we configure hook to run some code automatically in one of the three scenarios. So these are the three use cases. So we can configure some hook to run some sort of code automatically. That would happen in three scenarios. First scenario is that when the component is rendered for the first time only. So okay, so you are loading the component for very first time. Second thing is that when the component is rendered for first time and whenever it re-renders. So when a component re-render, anybody knows when a component re-renders itself? A component is rendered for the first time, but when it re-renders, yes, when the state changes, whenever you are changing the state, at that time, your component will re-render. So you can configure your hook to run again some sort of code if your component re-renders. And the third thing is that when your component rendered for the first time it will render. And whenever it is, when it will re-render, if some piece of data changes. Okay, so now say in your single component, there are 10 input fields. Say there are 10 text fields. Okay, and those for to manage the values of those 10 text fields, you have to write 10 different use state that you have to define normally. Okay, and after that, say after the end of these the 10th text field, you want to make a network call, or say for the 7th text field you want to make a network call. So how you would do that? So as you will see, there are 10 different text fields. So every time one text field value change, the whole component will re-render. But you want to make a network call whenever the value for the 7th element changes. How you will make that network call? That is some conditional rendering, right? That is when the third use case is very important. That is saying that when the component re-render, the component is rendered for the first time, and whenever it re-renders or when it will re-render, if some piece of data is changed. So if the data for the 7th text field changes, that time only the component will make some sort of component will execute some sort of code, or the hook will execute some sort of code, and then it will re-render itself. Right, these are the three scenarios. You can take a note for this one, or I will share the recording. From there you'll be able to read it properly, right? After this thing is complete, then we will okay, so we will use the use effect hook, right? So to do that, what we will do is that, so then I will explain this thing later on. Okay, so next I will import this use effect hook here, use effect hook, right? So now what we will do is that, okay, so now here in for the first thing is that here I am defining one function. So this is an arrow function that is defined using the ES6 syntax. You can also write your normal function like behavior here. This will also work. Okay, so I'm just changing it to the normal ES6 based syntax. Okay, render in every re-render. Okay, so if I would save this code, if I would execute it here, if I open the console, it is saying render in every re-render. Okay, so as I have said, here I have not defined anything. So here I have just written my use effect hook. Okay, so what is happening, as I said, this piece of code will render on the first on the first on the first render, and after in every render it will render. So what is happening, if I would change this thing also, if I would change the text field values also, as you can see, the text field values is changing. Along with that, this component is re-rendering, right? In that case, this hook is getting called every time. So if I would write Abhishek, and as you can see 17 18, these numbers in increasing, right? This number is increasing, right? That means it re-renders in every time. Now I can say that you re-render. So again I will go back to this slide. So in that case, the second variable or the second option is important. This option defines when this use effect will get called. Okay, so now, so there are the three kind of values that we can have in this in the second argument. First, we can pass one simple empty array. So what that will do, it will run in initial render only. So if I would pass this empty array here, if I would save this code again, if I would go back to my application, if I would refresh this page, as you can see, it rendered in not in every, I would say in render in first render. Okay, so whenever the component will load, at that time only it will render. But if I will clear my console, if I change my values here, this component is re-rendered, right? If I would check my React profile here, where is it? Okay, so as the state of this component is changing, it is re-rendering, right? But this piece of code is not executing because here I have mentioned one empty array. That means I am saying that this component will render, or this piece of code will execute only for the first render. Okay, so if I would change, go to my slide here, as I have said, if you pass this empty array, it will run in initial render. If you pass nothing, that is the first case that I have shown at the very first situation, it will run in initial render, then it will run in every re-render. Okay, so what will happen is that if I would remove this piece, as I said, for every re-render it is getting called, right? Now the third part is that it is saying, if I would give some sort of data, okay, so some sort of data, okay, assume some sort of data that I will pass it here, then it will run in initial render, and then it will run after every render if the data has changed in the last render. So if I pass some sort of data, and if the data changes, in that case only it will is this piece of code will execute. So how that will happen? For that, I have to take another text field here. So I have given, and I have taken one text field called username. Here I will take another text field called color. Okay. So handle say color input. Okay. And here again I will use one another color, say text field value, not text field value. I will say color field value. Okay, so I will change this thing here, and here I will change is that the function I will change it like set color field value. The color is say green. Okay, the color is green, and here I will change, I will again copy this method. I will define this handle color input method here. Okay, and I will set the color field value with the new value that I'm getting from the input, right? So let's check whether it works. There are two input fields, as you can see. The first one is for the name, second one is for the color. Color is say yellow. It is changing. Okay, so now if I would again remove this part, what will happen? It will execute in every render, whether I am writing anything here or whether I am changing anything here also, it is rendering, right? So now the important part comes. Let me give some charge to my laptop. It's not there. Yes. Okay, now let's say I give some control here, and I want my value to change if only this color field value changes. So in that case, if I would give say color field value, if I would pass it here, so what will happen? Render is first render, and on color change. Okay, so again I will replace the code. So it is rendering in the first render, and it will render on the color change. So now let's refresh and let's check whether it working in the name change as well. Say Amit, it is not working. But if I would change the color to say yellow, as you can see, it is executing, right? So from there you can make a network call. You can make some sort of alteration to your, you can pass the data to other component as well. This is when this use effect hook becomes useful. So you have to remember these key values, the key, these are the very key two slides for the use effect hook. First, what are the conditions to execute and how to define those conditions. Initial render, nothing mean all render. If you give some sort of data, then it will run on initial render as well, and whenever the data changes, right? Is it clear with the examples, guys? Is it clear now? Is it clear to you now? Everyone, please write it down. Otherwise, how I will understand? Yes. Okay. So if there is any confusion, then also you can let me know. I will answer the questions. All right. So let's move forward. The use effect hook is done. So you can use this use effect hook. And after that, say if you have a search field. So when the search field value would change, in that case, also you can make a network call from there. All right. So now let me give you some details of the final project that you are doing. The dates I would like to give. What are the important dates? The first, submit a very first version of your final project to your coaches for review by the 22nd October. So try to, if it can be any sketchy version, it can be say 2 3 forms or say 2 3 listing elements. Okay, but you complete that version say with API calls and all. Okay, so you try to submit the very first version of your project, and you let your coaches review it and come back to you. So based on their feedbacks, you present that you, so you fine tune that project. Sorry, the date is wrong here. So here it should be 26th to 28th October. So we will give dates for you depending on the submissions that you have made on 22nd October. So we will give different date to different participant. There you will present your final project to some industry experts. So I'll be there too, okay, to review. So they, you don't need to worry there, and I will bring some other people as well. So they will also see your presentation, whatever you are presenting. Okay, and then after that in November, if everything goes well and you got selected in the top 10, you qualify to work with Geogo on the live projects. Okay, so there we will give, as we have said at the very beginning of the session, that we will give you some live projects, means the projects that are happening here at Geogo, whatever applications we are developing. So we will assign you some sort of certain features. There are big projects are running, so we will give you some certain features. We will give you the repo access. They will be able to understand what are the industry standard of work is happening. Okay, so from that you will get that idea, and from that project you will be able to build some certain features. Okay, so depending on the performance, the next announcement that will come later on, right? These are the few important dates that I would like to disclose. So 22nd, you try to give a very first scratchy version. If you have anything, say only sign in is working, only the product listing is working, and checkout is working, that is also fine. Okay, so it need not to be a very detailed, perfect, and end version of it. It can be a stagey version. You just give us, let us review, and then we will according to the feedback, you present, you fine tune that, you fine tune your application, you do the changes, then you present your project to the industry experts. And from the November onwards, you work with Geogo on the live projects, I'm saying. So your internship will continue for 10 of you. So we will give you different certificates. So those who submit the project, they will get this internship certificate for sure. That is confirmed. Okay, but those who will qualify for the top 10, so we will extend their internship program. Okay, we will start a new, we will give you new certificate or new appointment letter from Geogo as an intern. So you will another 2 months you will work on Geogo on the live project. That is it. Okay, so you have any question here, or say the deadline is too compact, or you have to set a lot of things, or you will be not able to complete it by that time? What kind of features we have? Is it manageable, guys? So you have to give the effort to put it by 22nd. Even I would like to say some of you have already submitted one first version, so a very sketchy one, but they have submitted. Okay, 2-3% has submitted the final project. So you should not wait. So you go and keep your task ready. Okay, and we complete that part. So is it fine? The deadlines are fine to all with all of you? Okay, great. It for today. So we will meet again in the next session. So this week we will have the in this week we will have the sessions for assessment test. We will give it, and then I will give you the task that for you in the weekend. So whether you have to complete the documentation and all, so I will write that thing later on the group. Okay, so that is it for today. So we will meet again for another next session in future. If you have any question, you can drop that question on the chat. I will answer that, or you can also drop the question on the Discord. I will try to, or any case, if you face any problem in any whatever application you are building in React, if you face any problem there, you can also let me know. Right? Okay. Bye bye everyone. We will meet again in the next session. Right? Bye.